תשיב בי את הרוח, תוריד ממני את הגשם, היה לי ים זמן לנוח, התרגלתי קצת בעצם, במרחב הפתוח, רואים באופק את השמש, אין ספק אני בטוח, בסוף עוד תתבהר על דרך, רק פתח לנו שערי אמונה, שערי הבנה, שאין לנו מלך, אלא אתה, סיבת הסיבות, עילת העילות, נורת העילות, ורק לך נאה להודות, על כל הימים וכל הלילות. אל מציאות אחרת, לפדות את אסירי הכוח, ולחודי הרשת, גם לקבל את השחור לבן, עם כל צבעי הקשת, משנה אבות פרק ג', חביב אדם שנברא בצלם, רק פתח לנו שערי החלה, שערי התחלה, כי אין לנו מלך, אלא אתה, סיבת הסיבות, עילת העילות, נורת העילות, ורק לך נאה להודות, על כל הימים וכל הלילות, רק אתה, סיבת הסיבות, עילת העילות, נורת העילות, ורק לך נאה להודות, על כל הימים וכל הלילות.
Hallo und herzlich willkommen zur internationalen Marsch des
Hello and welcome to the International March of Life Remembrance event here live from Tübingen. It's great that you're with us tonight. Yeah, we're here tonight with the motto, Never Forget October 7th. Today, we are remembering the first anniversary of October 7, 2024, and the massacre of the Hamas on 1,700 Israelis. Many people were kidnapped, many were murdered in the most brutal way, and many of them today are either dead or they are suffering from the consequences, and there are actually more than 100 people as hostages being held in Gaza today. And today we have our remembrance event on the one hand to remember the victims who have passed away, who have been killed, and on the other side, 1 year after October 7th, we want to say that we will not forget, and we will never forget, and we never want to forget, and we may not forget what happened that day. It has to be a sign for us, because what we have seen in the world since the 7th of October a year ago is that anti-Semitism has exploded around the world. First, there was a wave of solidarity with Israel together, where people stood together with Israel, but very quickly it all turned around. And then it became critic of the politics, of the way that nations deal with one another, and that's not what it should be about tonight. But tonight we want to remember what happened, and we want to raise our against anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. And a great part of our event tonight is looking back 1 year since October 7th. How are people doing in Israel? People who themselves were kidnapped, people who today live in Israel. And then we want to look forward. How will it continue with the nations? Of course with Israel, but also in the nations we have many organizers of Marches of Life in the nations, and they stand against anti-Semitism. And so this evening will be split up into 3 different blocks, and you had many interviews. 2 weeks ago, you were with a team together with Jobst and Bittner, the founders of March of Life, and you were in Israel in this time, and you experienced lots of gratefulness where people said, we can't take for granted that you're here, and this should flow into the evening tonight as well. But maybe you could give us a taste of what happened and how people reacted. Yeah, a week ago we were in Israel. And right now it's a very exciting time, if I'm even allowed to say it like that. But we were in Israel in a time where there really is war, and we noticed that. We arrived, and the 7th of October isn't over yet. And that's something that you notice, and that's something that is in the atmosphere when you're in Israel. You notice that the 7th of October is not something that happened a year ago. Yes, of course, this day was 1 year ago, but what happened since then and the pain of that day is still something to feel today. And through our talks that we had, that's what we noticed with the people that we met there. And we have great friends there who we met, and we spoke with them, but we also had people who we met for the very first time. People, Israelis who were directly affected by the 7th of October, either, as you just said, because they themselves were hostages in Gaza. There were also individuals there who have family members who they lost. They were murdered on the 7th of October. And they experienced unimaginable things that we heard. And that was the first thing that we heard in the interviews that we had. There was such a big pain and such injuries that are not healed and have not been healed to this day. And something that also came that we realized through our talks was this looking forward. How will we continue? We're not going to stop fighting, and we believe that there's a better future for us. And what we often heard from them, from our friends and from the Israelis who we talked with, they said, what you do, it gives us hope. What you do, that you go on the streets, for Israel, that you raise your voices against anti-Semitism, that's what gives us hope. And it also encouraged us because we realized, wow, that what we're doing, it has an impact and it influences others. And it's heard and it's seen in Israel. And we want to express this hope this evening. And we're going to start with our commemoration in a moment. And we'd like to invite you to be part of the stream and to share it with others so that the most people can be part of it. And we will start now.
נחמו נחמו עמי יאמר אלוקיכם נחמו נחמו עמי יאמר אלוקיכם נחמו נחמו עמי יאמר אלוקיכם יאמר אלוקיכם דברו אל ירושלים וכי
Nachamu Army, tröstet mein Volk, darum geht
Nachamu
es.
Ami, comfort my people. That's what we're talking about on this anniversary of the 7th of October, 1 year after the awful attack of Hamas on Israel. Hundreds of people were murdered and hundreds were also taken hostage. And I'd like to welcome you to our memorial service today of March of Life. And I'd like to say welcome to all of our viewers around the world. We will be streaming in German, English, Spanish, Polish, and Russian. And we are here in the TOS Church and Conference Center in Tübingen, and we are streaming this live right now. And today, as March of Life, as a movement of the March of Life in 130 places and in 25 nations, this morning at 6:29 in the morning in Israel, we read aloud the names of the murdered and kidnapped Israelis. And here I am with Jobst, Bittner, the founder of March of Life. And Jobst, why is it so important to start and remember this together with our Israeli friends? I'd like to welcome you very personally to this memorial service today. And I grew up with remembering the Holocaust, but now with the October 7th, commemoration has received a new face with the attack of the Hamas, the awful pictures, the victims that are there. This remembering, it's more than just remembering even. This commemoration is, it's a call that we have to take a stand, that we have to mobilize, and that's what we're trying to do as March of Life. And I am very thankful for what is happening around the world with memorial services, but we are not allowed to stand still because we have to become active and we have to lift our voices against anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism. And this happened around the world today. And we have a brief video that we put together with over 100 places that you see where there were vigils this morning. Please, can we watch the video now?
At the same time when the brutal Hamas attack began 1 year ago, at 6:29 Israeli time, we are reading the names of the more than 1,000 victims in 130 places in 25 nations. We are holding posters to remember the destroyed kibbutzim and moshavim. We share the grief of the Jewish people, stand with the State of Israel, and raise our voices against anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism.
Wir sind so dankbar für alle, die
We're so grateful for everybody who woke up very early this morning, or those in America who stayed up very late
dem Gedenken Israels eins zu machen.
to become one with the commemorating together with Israel. And before we look directly to Israel, we have a guest from Zoom, Matan Kahana. He is a Knesset representative. He is the former Minister of Religion, and he is a friend in March of Life. He was 2 times at the Marches of Life, this year in Stuttgart and last year in Berlin. And Matan, thank you so much that you're taking your time today on this very special and especially sad day for Israel. Please share with us, how was this day today? How was this day for you, the 7th of October, 1 year afterwards?
Hello, Heinz, and hello, Jobst, and hello to everyone who is watching us around the world. I'm very emotional to be here with you. And as you said, and as I saw in your clip, first of all, I want to thank to what all you are doing around the world in the memory of our people who got killed in the 7th of October, a barbaric attack a year ago. And it's very important for us. And everyone in Israel, there isn't no one in Israel that don't know personally a family or a person who got killed, got murdered, or kidnapped in this barbaric attack. So for us in Israel, it's a very, very emotional day. Personally, I've been in a friend of mine who got killed. He was in the alert squad of his moshav, and early in the morning they called him to run with his force, and they ran to one of the kibbutzim near Gaza Strip, and at the first combat he got killed, he got shot and got killed, and he was a friend of mine from the service in the army, and I've been in his memorial ceremony. And I believe that everyone in Israel participated in such ceremonies today. Even in the place I'm living, they had a very big ceremony. And that's the way we express this emotional day here in Israel.
Thank you so much, Matan. I can imagine how special, but also how emotional it is and difficult it is to remember this day. What is your message from Israel for the viewers here from around the world? What do you say to them 1 year afterwards?
The most important thing that I learned from the massacre of the 7th of October is that maybe we forgot that our enemies are totally different from us. The set of values are different from ours. We appreciate life. We appreciate humanity, and they prefer death. They will do everything to kill others, to make others miserable. They don't care about themselves. They don't care about their children. They only care about harming Jews and Christians all over the world. And their set of values are totally different from ours. This is the first thing that I learned. And the second thing is that when our enemies are saying something, maybe they really mean it. And when our enemies are saying that they intend to destroy Israel, they mean it. When Hamas says they intend to destroy Israel, they mean it. And when Hezbollah stockpiling 200,000 missiles and they are threatening to destroy Israel, they mean it. And when Iran, that they are the head of all what's happening here in the region, are saying time and time again that they are going to destroy Israel, and they are working very hard to achieve nuclear bombs, they really mean to destroy Israel. And it's a warning not only for us in Israel. It's not a problem of us in Israel. It's a problem of the whole world, because they seek to spread the Sharia laws, the Islamic religious laws, all over the world. And they are saying it time and time again, and they really mean it. It's not a war of the Jews of Israel against Hamas. It's a war of the Western world, all the Christian and the Jewish world against the radical Islam. And it's better for all the world to learn from our mistakes. Maybe we forgot that when our enemies are saying something, they mean it, and that their set of values are totally different. But you must learn from our mistakes. And if you will not wake up very soon, it will happen to you. And remember, when in Iran they are burning the Israeli flags, they never burn our flags alone. They always burn it with other countries' flags. We are the little Satan, but Western Europe and the United States are the big Satan. And you should remember it. And unfortunately, there are too many fools in the world, including countries' leaders, that don't understand that we in Israel are fighting your war. We are fighting the war of all the Western world.
Vielen Dank, Matan, dass du.
Thank you, Matan, that you're taking time today for us, and we take very seriously your words that you just said, where you and Israel are fighting a war, and we stand together with you here with the March of Life movement and around the world. And we're looking forward to seeing you here soon again at a March of Life, and maybe also even in Israel. Thank you that you took time for us this evening.
Jobst,
Jobst, we were in Israel last week together, and we met people there. And one of them was Sam Grundwerg. Maybe you could say something about him. We're going to have a video from him in a moment. We had a privilege that we are connected with Sam Grundwerg for many years together. He is the international founder of Kfar Aza, and we met with him. And he was the first person we met with, and we asked him how he was doing and how he experienced October 7th. And out of this, we had a very moving conversation, and he told us that after the 7th of October, he had the very sad and awful assignment to go to the different families and tell them about the death of their fallen sons and soldiers. It was a very painful assignment. And so we started to talk, and he told us about this. And we are connected with our hearts together, and he told us that he has 2 sons who are in the IDF. And I could say so much more, but maybe we'll just hear this greeting video from him.
Shalom to our dear friends. I'm Sam Grundwerg, World Chairman of Kfar Aza, and I first want to acknowledge and thank our dear friends Jobst and his wife Charlotte. Jobst is the founder and president of March of Life, and I want to also acknowledge and thank Heinz, the international director, and all of you that have gathered together for this vigil, and to never forget October 7th on this occasion of the 1-year anniversary of the horrific events that took place on October 7th, the worst events that have taken place to the Jewish people since the Holocaust in modern times. I'm standing here, as you might be able to recognize, in front of the site of the Nova Music Festival, where hundreds of innocent young people that came together only to enjoy music and enjoy life were murdered, wounded, and kidnapped. And this was, as you know, just one of the many sites of the horrific massacres that took place on October 7th. And I think it's appropriate that from here, as you have gathered from all around the world, our Christian friends of Israel, in order to remember and to never forget the events of October 7th. And I also want to thank you from here, from the bottom of my heart, for standing with Israel, for standing with the Jewish people, and also for speaking out against anti-Semitism. We've seen since October 7th anti-Semitism rearing its ugly head once again in ways that are just unimaginable, and it continues to this day. And so it is critically important for our Christian friends all around the world to hear your message and to hear and to see what you do in terms of standing with Israel and praying with Israel. And so I send you blessings from here in the Holy Land. As it says in Genesis 12, those who bless Israel shall be blessed. Thank you for standing with Israel. Thank you for standing with the Jewish people and for speaking out against hate and against anti-Semitism. May we remember October 7th and never forget and work towards a brighter tomorrow. God bless.
Eli, Eli, Shelo ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, מרק השמיים, תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ורק השמיים, תפילת האדם. אלי, אלי, שלא ייגמר לעולם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, מרק השמיים, תפילת האדם, החול והים, רשרוש של המים, ורק השמיים, תפילת האדם.
Wir möchten jetzt
And
Geschichten
now we would like to hear stories from October 7th. And Jobst, we already mentioned we were in Israel together last week, and we met with survivors of the 7th of October. We heard their stories. And what was important for you in this time?
Ja, wir hatten viele bewegende
So we had very many moving conversations with survivors, like you said, of the 7th of October and Holocaust survivors, also witnesses.
aus dem Norden geflüchtet ist.
There was a man who fled from the north. But something that really touched me was this. 2 months after the 7th of October, my wife and I had the opportunity to come to Israel,
Hatten die Möglichkeit,
and we had the possibility
gehörte Kibbutz Kfar Aza
to see this destroyed kibbutz Kfar Aza. And there was a young man, Hanan, and he showed us the entire kibbutz, and he told us the story, and we couldn't imagine what had happened. And out of this, we had a spontaneous interview, and we wanted to meet with him again 1 year later, because this question moves me. What has happened 1 year later? I asked him 2 months after the attack, and I asked him, what do you need? And he said, we need security, and the hostages are an open wound in us. And so I asked him, what has happened 1 year later? The hostages, or many hostages, are still trapped in the terror tunnels of in Gaza, and Israel is in war. And I said, what does it look like in Israel? And so we asked this question to different people, right? And we would like to see this in a moment. So we have interviews that we've cut into 3 different parts. The first interview is about what they experienced on the 7th of October. The second interview is about Israel and how Israel and their lives have changed since 7th of October. And the third interview is about, in a time where it's still horrific, how they will continue. So we'll see the first interview now.
And I looked at Keith and I said, just let me die first.
I'm 21 years old. I have 2 younger siblings. We lost both our parents on October 7th.
I'm Aviva Siegel. I'm Keith's wife. And I'm from kibbutz Kfar Aza that lost 64 people on the 7th. And 19 of us were taken to Gaza. 5 hostages, my husband Keith, are still in Gaza.
I'm Shir, I'm 21 years old. I live in Cholit, used to live in Cholit in Israel. I'm half American and half Israeli. I'm the oldest. I have 2 younger siblings, a sister who's 19 and a brother who's now 17. And we lost both our parents on October 7th.
My name is Sarah Jackson. I was a kid when war started, and they put us into wagons, you know, like you take animals. We were in camps in Austria, Salzburg.
My name is Aniella Goldberg. I live in Metulla. On the 7th or 8th of October, we had to leave our home. Even if I am now alive, I am a victim of a genocide. I don't have a picture of my grandparents. You know why? Because my mother left Warsaw in October 39 because of the Nazis who invaded Poland. I even don't have here pictures of my parents. I will not have the same destiny like my mother. Even if I, in my age, have to take weapon and to defend my country, I will do it.
We, like most Israelis, were waken up that morning by air raid sirens. Just out the window here, 50 meters, we were still in bed. As Orthodox Jews, it was Shabbat, so we didn't have our phones on, we didn't turn on the TV, we didn't perceive that we were in a specifically life-threatening situation. So each of the 4 times that morning that we were sent to the bomb shelter, we actually sat in a dark room because we elected not to turn the light on since it was Shabbat, and we figured this would pass.
So for us, we can basically say that the story started October 6th. It was a holiday of Sukkot. The last day of the holiday is called Simchat Torah. We had our family over. My family was visiting for the holiday, and my parents stayed to sleep at our house. And in the morning of October 7th, like the rest of the country, 6:20-something, 30-something, we were woken up by this barrage of rockets, and the first sensation was, yeah, this is not serious. You know, there was this sensation of disbelief.
I was at home and couldn't believe what was happening. My first concern was, of course, what was going on in the village, Adi Negev, Nehalat, Heran. They told me that everything was fine. This gave me assurance that it would be over soon. Just rockets in another kind of attack, but something small. I simply couldn't believe that something like this could happen, that 7,000 terrorists could enter and capture settlements. I received a message from Doron Almog, who is a family member. He lives in the Galilee, but his sister Shen lives in Kfar Aza. He told me that there was no contact with Shen, her partner Nadav, their eldest daughter Yam, and the others, Agam, Gal, and Tal, 6 in total. He said all 6 were missing.
It's not easy to tell the story. It's a long one. On the 7th of October, it was a holiday, Simchat Torah, and we have many guests at home. And we woke up in the morning, and suddenly I heard the alert in the south. My husband also woke up, and he asked me if I heard something. I told him, it's abnormal. It's too much. Something is going on in the south. We didn't know the real horror, what happened in the south, until the evening.
Kit and I went home, sleeping, and the first alarm happened at 6:30 in the morning. and we ran into a little shelter. We didn't even close the door because we knew that after 1 or 2 we'll be out. And there were 1 or 2, and we left out, and I saw through the window all the missiles coming out to Tel Aviv, to Beersheba, to Jerusalem, all over the country. And you can see, because they're very high, we're very, very close to the border. And we understood that something really, really bad is happening. And then somebody on Kibbutz Kfar Aza wrote on a group that I belong to that she can hear noises of the Hamas terrorists shooting people. And then we got a message that somebody was killed.
And in the distance we hear gunfires, but we still don't understand what it is. We don't know if it's coming from the border. At this point, we still don't understand that this is coming from inside the kibbutz. And while we were taking our time to get into the safe room, there were already people being killed and murdered in our kibbutz. It wasn't for us maybe until 2 or 3 hours later, and a neighbor sends us these famous pictures of pickup trucks with machine guns in Sderot. And the first picture I see says, still disbelief. It's like, this gotta be Photoshopped, someone's playing a hoax. Another picture and then a video. And that's when it hits that this is real, and realize that if there's terrorists riding pickup trucks in Sderot, that means they're in our kibbutz. And then we start getting more news about people who are shot or wounded or missing or can't communicate with. And this goes on for the rest of the day, and we have no information. And the sensation of disbelief turns into this sensation of helplessness. And realize there's people being murdered and shot. We still didn't know about the kidnappings. This wasn't until later.
I felt like Cholit was the safest place on earth. On October 7th, everything changed in a heartbeat. And I woke up at 6:30, and I woke up not because of the red alerts. I woke up because my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. And then we started hearing shootings, which was very strange because we usually don't hear shootings. Then we heard like bombs going off. We heard cars exploding, and we didn't know we had terrorists inside the kibbutz. And my mom called me. She told me to close the door of the safe room, and my door wouldn't close. It broke, and I had no time to fix it, but I couldn't close it, and I had a towel on the door which held it tight. And then we actually got the message that we have terrorists, that some terrorists have infiltrated Israel, and we have terrorists in Cholit, and we should turn off all of our lights and electrician, and we should stay quiet and not leave the safe room, and we shouldn't open the door to anybody.
And then we heard the shooting coming closer and the Arabic outside screaming. And then we heard them walking next to the door, the steps, and shouting. And they opened the door, and about 15 terrorists shoved themselves inside to see who they caught this time. And what saved our lives, Keith put his head on his knees. By Keith doing that, kept us alive. And they were shooting us. One of the bullets hit Keith. And when they took us in Keith's car. And when they took us, they pushed us, and Keith fell, and they broke his ribs. And that's how we got to Gaza.
And my mom was writing that they hear glass breaking in their house, and that was around 7:45 in the morning. And the next message I got regarding my parents was at 8:01 in the morning. My younger brother wrote, "Mom and Dad are dead, sorry." And that was one of the last messages we saw. And he wrote that he was bleeding, he was injured, and that there's smoke and he can't breathe. And that's it. And then we had no idea what was going on.
Meanwhile, we also started checking on what was happening with our people at the Jewish Agency. Here in Israel, we have 25 immigrant absorption centers, 5 youth villages, and we wanted to know what was going on, especially in the south, of course. We have absorption centers in Ashkelon, Ashdod, Beersheba, and a lot of activity. We also have a youth village in Nitzana. And towards the evening, I gave a briefing to all the Jewish leadership over Zoom. In the middle of the briefing, I got a WhatsApp message informing me that all 6 from Kfar Aza had been murdered. As I was speaking and explaining what was happening in Israel, we still thought that maybe there was around 100 casualties. But no, we could never have imagined that it would reach 1,200 with over 250 hostages.
But that was a traumatic day. 4 o'clock that afternoon, my oldest son, who was a newlywed, he was married for 3 months, came into the house, still wearing his clothes for Shabbat, and he said he had 10 minutes to get all of his gear together, and he was being picked up to be taken to the Gaza border, Kfar Aza, fighting terrorists. They were still active terrorists in Kfar Aza at that time. And actually, he says that was more scary for him than being in Gaza for about 2.5 months himself. On his way down, he was passing burnt out cars where people had been murdered, bodies on the road, and if, God forbid, he had left that morning, he would have found himself in a situation where he could have been murdered by the terrorists. So thank God for that.
Eventually, we were evacuated from the kibbutz at approximately 2 a.m., already Sunday morning. So we've been over 20 hours in the safe room from 6 in the morning until 2 in the morning the day after. And this was the first time we saw the outside world, and the kids, thankfully, were already kind of tired, they were asleep. And as we see the outside world, it's a different world afterwards. We see burnt cars, smashed cars, we see bodies laying on the roads, we see houses burnt up. And this was, even though we took the long way around, we didn't go through the center of the kibbutz, we saw so much damage and carnage and destruction all around us.
And it was very difficult learning who had died, and especially because my best friend and her siblings, they lost their dad, and another very, very good friend of mine lost her mom. And we were, I think, 14 orphans in Cholit. I would like to add that one of the people who were murdered that day in Cholit was actually a Holocaust survivor. He died with his caregiver in Cholit. He's one of the 15 people in Cholit who were murdered that day.
And that's how we got to Gaza. While Keith was bleeding, his ribs were broken. We arrived in Gaza, and there were lots and lots of terrorists all over Kfar Aza on the way. And when we arrived inside Gaza, we saw families of children and babies and older people shouting and happy and clapping their hands and shooting in the air and shouting Allahu Akbar. It was like a party for them, while Keith and I were shaking. They took us to a house, and after 4 steps walking inside the living room, there was a hole going down underneath the ground with a ladder. And I'll never forget the terrorist looking at me and smiling while I was shaking and crying, and told me to come down the ground. I remember that Keith could hardly breathe with his ribs being broken, and we had to go down the ladder and walk after them. And they took us walking and walking when you feel that there's not a lot of oxygen in that tunnel. And we arrived to a place that's a little arch that's open with 3 yoga mats. And we were there with 7 people from the kibbutz. There was a family that arrived, a mother and 3 children, and she said that they killed her daughter and killed her husband in front of their eyes. Her daughter fainted, and they told her to wake her up, and she wasn't able to wake her up, so they just shot her. They shot her in her face. And they shot her husband because he tried to protect his family. So I said to the children that the father was such a hero, that's what he did. And we really helped them, and they helped us. And then we were separated after 3 days.
Spain and all its parts, who Creator of peace and strife, who sits on the judgment throne, who forgives, acquits, and dons the long robe of mercy, watches over and knows just who will heal my broken heart when I fall apart and I'm longing like an ocean with no shore. Won't you just tell me who will now embrace me and promise that I will not break down anymore? Who is, was, and will remain, who gives life and obliterates, opens up all hands, wings to fly and feet to land, and who will heal my broken heart when I fall apart and I'm longing like an ocean with no shore? Won't you just tell me who will now embrace me and promise that I will not break down anymore? I'm longing like an ocean with no shore. רק תגיד לי מי מחבק אותי ויבטיח שאני לא אכנע בסוף, שאני לא אכנע בסוף.
Jobst, es ist ein Jahr her, der 7. Oktober.
Jobst, it's 1 year since the 7th of October, and we ourselves had the interviews and heard these conversations, but it's still so difficult to imagine what happened on the 7th of October. Why is it so important to remember this? So there's an instance in us which doesn't want to hear this. And that's why it's easy for us to relativize these stories so quickly. And it's actually the case that people deny what happened on the 7th of October. So there's large groups, politicians, and streams of people saying that's not what happened, and it's being made bigger than it was. But that's why we have to hear these stories. And alone, the stories today, hearing from leaders of Israel to hear uncensored what happened. We all watch this to find out what happened, so that out of this, and not just out of being touched by what happened, but out of this being shaken, that we can fight against every relativizing of what happened. And that's what we have to do in the future. And that's why it is so important to listen and also to not protect ourselves from this. Yeah, and we would like to see the second part of our videos in a moment. And in the second part, it's about, the one part is the 7th of October, but it also had effects. It changed the life of Israel and the lives of these people so much. And that's exactly what the second part is about.
They want to destroy the state of Israel. Why? We gave them everything.
The world cannot be quiet, because if it does, that means that any boy can touch any girl.
The Jewish people are in the most difficult situation.
It's almost weird to say that it's been a year since. And in some aspects, it's been a very long year. In other aspects, it's been a very short year. Some things feel like it was just like yesterday. Some things have gotten a little bit better, but on the other hand, like there hasn't been any breakthrough. You know, we're still fighting this war, which has been going on for over a year now. We can say there's been some achievements militarily with Hamas, but again, there still is no ceasefire. There's still over 100 hostages in Gaza, and we thought a year ago, like, yeah, there'll be a couple of months at most. A year from now, that's impossible. Half a year from now would be impossible, and yet we're a year later, and there's still hostages in Gaza, and there's no negotiations, and this sensation of just being stuck. And there's no real end to this, at least currently in sight, which is, I'd say it's kind of discouraging. It's kind of, you know, what's the outcome of all of this?
I'm still in Gaza, remembering all the time what we went through, what I felt, what Keith felt, what I said to Keith when I could, what I said to the girls, what the girls went through, because I saw them being tortured and hit and touched. I didn't think that I would ever come out to Israel. They used to say all the time that there's no Israel anymore. The whole world is bombing Israel. And I don't know why, but I believe them. So that day that I was released, somebody came to me and said, "You tomorrow Israel?" And I looked at him and I said, "I'm not going anywhere without Keith." And I went to Keith and I found him sad, alone, lying on the floor, but I could see that he was very, very worried and very, very sad, not being next to me. And I bent down and I gave him a hug and looked at him in the eyes, and I said to him, "You be strong for me, and I'll be strong for you." He didn't say a word. He was in a shock. I was in a shock. So he didn't even say anything. But I understood that I'd have to get up and go with him.
The Jewish people are in the most difficult situation. On October 9th, Monday, I began to understand the extent of the disguise and the horrific failure. These were scenes we had only heard about from World War II. Jews being burned, women raped, and people beheaded. As someone who served as a head of the Southern Command, I simply cannot imagine that we reached this point. I was the commander of the Gaza Division and the head of the Southern Command. This is a terrible, terrible, terrible failure. In the state of Israel, we will carry this terrible memory for generations, yes. And every Passover, at the Seder night, we will continue to say, "In my blood I live," and remember the horrors of the Jewish people and the Holocaust during World War II. The memory of 6 million and the terrible memory of October 7th, Shabbat of Simchat Torah. We are now approaching Rosh Hashanah, the days of awe. And for generations this will become part of the history, yes, of the state of Israel going forward. I believe this is a commandment for future generations of the Jewish people. Just as we said about the Holocaust, never forget, never forget.
for the 101 families of hostages who are still in captivity in Gaza. They have mothers and fathers, and some have spouses and children and have siblings and maybe fiancés and best friends and schoolmates and colleagues. So for each one of the 101, there's 1,000 or more people who are experiencing this ongoing every single day as a trauma at different levels of trauma. And for those of us who have the privilege of sending our children into the army, it's the most scary thing that I've experienced in my life. That day, October 7th, when my oldest son drove off in a small black car and we didn't know exactly what was happening. But we've had several hundred soldiers and hundreds of widows now, and more than 1,000 children, perhaps a few thousand, I don't have a precise number, who are now orphans. And for all of them, their lives are changed. And for us as a society. So there's no question that we're living in the midst of a trauma, and with no end in sight, and only when there's an end can we begin to recover completely, individually and as a nation, to whatever extent that recovery will be.
Honestly, I don't know. I take it day by day. There isn't like a magical recipe of how to cope with something like that, but you hang on to things that were real in your life. For me, it's writing, and I did start my school, my degree. And it's different things for each and every one of us, but we cope together and we hold each other. And it's very, very important to have your community around you. And thankfully, I do have my community around me, the Cholit community, even here in Revivim. We moved together, and my sister lives behind me, and my best friends live to the sides of me. So that's one thing of it. And the other one is it's hard, and you have nightmares, and it's like keep on remembering every day, oh right, I don't have my parents with me, which is crazy. I mean, watching videos of them, they're so alive and happy, and then you remember that they're not anymore. And it's very hard, but I have people who help me, and I have my friends who are going through the same thing, and we're holding each other very, very tightly. I think that shows the face of the people in Israel, like always holding each other and helping each other, and sure we have our things that we don't agree on, and we have protests here for the kidnapped people in Gaza who are still in Gaza, and we have our disagreements, but I think most of the people in Israel, at least at the beginning of the war, really put everything aside and just help each other.
Everything changed, everything. I cannot even think, I don't want to think what is going on in my house now. It is almost 1 year that I am not at home. And we heard what happened in Metulla. The Hezbollah, the terrorist organizations, the long hand of Iran made one hand with Hamas. They want to destroy the state of Israel. I don't remember myself sick or ill. In this 11 last month, I was always sick and ill. So I think it's not physical illness. My body reacted to my soul. And I'm not alone. You know, many elderly people from Metulla who were perfectly right. They died because of a broken heart. As you can see, I have this here.
Yes.
This blue heart is Metulla. And my house is in the middle of the heart, but it's in a hole. And we cannot forget our place. Who can forget his home?
And I'm lucky to be sitting here and talking to you. And I'll never ever forget that minute of coming out of that tunnel and just breathing, my first time breathing. It was like borning, it was like coming to life again, because I was sure that we are going to die there. The feeling of the death coming so close to you, while you're just lying, you can't even pick your head up, you can't talk, you're just so weak, just trying to breathe when the air does not come into your body. And that's just one moment. I was threatened with a gun, I was pushed, I was screamed at, I was starved. Many, many, many things, and so many things I went through while I was in Gaza. And I just can't imagine the hostages still there. The only sign of life that we got of Keith is this picture that was taken in April, that you can see that all his bones are out. He looks like he's 20 years older than he is. And he looks sad. And in the video, he was crying and begging. And I want to tell you that when the Hamas terrorists came to video Keith and I, one of the times I said to him, I'm going to cry when I talk. Well, I'm going to show everybody there that I'm upset, that they'll see that we're in danger. And he said, no, Aviva, you keep strong when you talk. You don't want your children and your family to see you like that. So I was strong, but Keith in April cried. And that just means, I'm sure that he remembered that he told me that he's really, really in danger and that he really needs us to get him out.
From what happened on October 7th, there's, I think, a feeling worldwide that after Hamas's success in attacking and murdering so many, it's as if Jewish blood is cheap. And this can happen anywhere, in universities, on campuses, in Germany, the US, the Netherlands, England, South Africa. And South Africa is suddenly leading a campaign against Israel, claiming that Israel is committing genocide. We are the ones who suffered genocide. On October 7th, my family wanted to fly kites. We, the Jewish people, who pray every day that the Lord will give strength to his people, the Lord will bless his people with peace. We extend our hand for peace. We dreamed of peace. As our parents, who always saw war as a necessary evil only if there's no choice, we don't want to fight. The Jewish people simply want peace. And suddenly the whole world is against us. Suddenly anti-Semitism is rising again, on a scale we've never seen before, with demonstrations by Palestinians, Hezbollah supporters and Hamas supporters. Hezbollah is firing from the north, and Iran is talking about the destruction of the State of Israel, and we are backed into a corner. The State of Israel is currently fighting against 7 countries, 7 organizations and countries simultaneously, and thousands of rockets. Just from Lebanon alone, 9,000 rockets have been fired at Israel so far. No other country in the world has had so many rockets fired at it. On the night of April 13th and 14th this year, Iran launched 330 missiles, ballistic missiles, drones, firing at the State of Israel, along with the Houthis from Yemen, Iraq, Lebanon, Gaza, and Judea and Samaria, all attacking us.
בכל העולם.
Wir haben gerade die Geschichten gehört.
So we just heard the stories. What has happened in Israel since then? How the lives of the survivors of the 7th of October have changed, how it has changed Israel. But the 7th of October didn't just have effects in Israel, but effects around the world. And we would like to speak with some of our international March of Life directors in a moment about what has changed. Before we have a few interviews and talk with some of you, I'd like to share another thought with you. I had to think about when we saw Doron Almog. He is the international representative of the Jewish Agency, and it was such a great privilege to be allowed to interview him. And I was in the Jewish Agency, exactly in the room where David Ben-Gurion, the founder of the State of Israel, had his office. And it moved me so deeply how he spoke about how the world even turned against Israel, and how they turned the roles of the victim and the enemy around. And he said it didn't just change Israel, but it changed the entire world, and there was a shift that came around the world, and there was an explosion of anti-Semitism worldwide. And it looked very different around the world. And that's why we want to ask our directors of Marches of Life, how was it in your nation? And I'm so happy The director of March of Life, Edward Cheers, is with us today. He is a long-year friend of ours, and we have been friends for many years. And these are the two questions. The one question is, in this 1 year, what has changed in Poland? And the second question is also, what gives you hope in this time? Hello, Edward. I'm so happy that you're here.
Bardzo się cieszę, że jestem z wami. Ściskam wszystkich serdecznie.
I'm so happy to be here with you together. I'd like to say hello to all of you.
Pierwszego mówcy do pana Matana Kahana. Bardzo się utożsamiam z tym, co powiedział. I cały czas mam świadomość, że walka toczy się między światłością a ciemnością w jakiś wzmożony sposób od 7 października ubiegłego roku. Jeżeli chodzi o Polskę...
I'd like to talk about what Matan Kahana said. It's this fighting between light and darkness. When we're talking about Poland, we have so many Muslims in Poland, and that's why you can see this very powerful and you don't see the strong anti-Semitism on the streets in Poland because there aren't so many Muslims. And there are two universities, large universities, who had anti-Israel demonstrations, which they prepared in the last days, recently. So it's not very public on the streets, but we can see a growth in anti-Semitism in social media. No matter what we write about Israel, 80% of the comments are against Israel. They're full of hatred.
To, co się stało z Kościołem, też jest bardzo ciekawe.
And now we have to battle with this. It's interesting what's happening in the churches. There were people where you thought they stood together with Israel, and all of a sudden, they're against Israel. And that is my opinion when I speak with pastors. I believe it was very superficial for them. There was lots of anti-Semitism. There was no understanding of Israel or how God sees Israel. And there's one very interesting phenomenon. Some churches who until now have had no interest in Israel at all of a sudden, they want us to teach them, and they want to know what the calling of Israel is. And what the role of Israel is. There's such a polarization that I'm seeing in the church today. It could be in the Israel embassy, and there was a commemoration there, and I could speak together with the representative, Bittner, and we took a picture together with the sign from the event, and he wanted me to say this to all of you, that what you are doing and what we are doing, it is very important for them in this time. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this wonderful initiative. Thank you so much, Edward. It's so encouraging, both light and darkness. And thank you so much for sharing your message with us. And now we'd like to look to Ukraine. So we want to talk with Nastia Antipova. She is Ukrainian, but she lives in Germany, and she also coordinates our work with March of Life in Ukraine. And Ukraine is in a very difficult situation right now because they are also fighting a war. Nastia, could you please share with us what has happened since the 7th of October, and also what happened today with the vigil, Never Forget October 7th?
Leider konnte ich jetzt gerade im Zoom die Frage nicht hören, weil im Zoom ist...
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question in Zoom.
Okay, dann machen wir es so, dass wir kurz
das Problem lösen. We're going to fix our technical problem, and I'm going to go to Rosalie because she can definitely understand me. So Rosalie, can you hear me? Maybe we can have Rosalie Jerome. She is the director of March of Remembrance in Dallas, in Texas.
In den USA, vielleicht könnte das Bild shiften.
And in US, maybe you could change the picture to the US, please.
Ich sehe zu den Technikern, ob es
I'm looking to our technicians.
Kurze Bestätigung.
Can I have a confirmation, please?
Okay.
Ich höre dich wieder, Heinz.
So, okay.
Jetzt kann man dich gut hören.
Rosalie, kannst du mich hören? Dann machen wir
Rosalie, can you hear me? Then give me a thumbs up if you hear the translation. Then I know that you understand me.
Maybe you could change the picture to the US, please.
Okay. Scheinbar. Rosalie, kannst du meine...
Okay, Rosalie, do you hear the translation? Please put up your thumb, then I know that you can hear me.
Okay, gut.
Good.
Rosalie, in den USA hat sich auch vieles...
Rosalie, in US, lots of things have changed since October 7th. And many things are not the way they used to be. Maybe you could just tell us, give us a view into what has changed in America since the 7th of October.
Please put up your thumb, then I know that you can hear me.
I can hear you. All right.
In USA hat sich auch Rosalie, in US, lots of things have changed since October 7th. And many things are not the way they used to be. Maybe you could just tell us, give us a view into what has changed in America since the 7th of October.
I would like to tell you that the word polarized is definitely what's going on.
Lots of things have changed since October 7th.
There's two people speaking. I'm hearing like a lot of stuff. Same.
You could just tell us, give us a view into what has changed in America since the 7th of October.
Since the 7th, that the word polarized is definitely what's going on. I don't think what's happening is I'm hearing you. There's two people. There we go. Okay, now I can hear you. I apologize. Can you hear me?
Rosalie, try it again.
I apologize. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can
I
hear you.
don't hear this.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me, Rosalie? Do you hear me, Rosalie?
Okay, you can go on.
You can go on.
Okay, wir machen Shift. Geht mir hier drauf. Okay. Wir haben leider leichte technische Probleme mit der
I'd
Zoom-Übertragung.
like to apologize. We have problems with our Zoom stream, so we're going to talk with our directors after the next block. So we're going to continue and go to the third interview block in Israel. And there, it's all about what gives people in Israel hope. Because on the one hand, it's what happened in Israel. But when you're in Israel, you can see what happens when all these traumatic things happen, and there's a wish to continue to live, and this is very inspiring and special, and that's why we want to look at this third interview now.
The question that's making me cry.
And I hope.
My hope.
That is hopeful.
And I just hope.
My hope is that, first of all, the unity that's come out of this here in Israel will stay strong. My hope is that for those who are the most broken, who have suffered the most, that they will find comfort somewhere, somehow. Of course, that all the hostages will be released. That's critical. And my hope is that for our continued military success, I think it's impossible for me to imagine that by October 7th, 2024, we will have finished all of the military campaign that's essential. But I think it's so important that we continue to succeed on the ground, from the air, and also to show deterrence to anyone who would ever think that attacking Israel, that the idea of destroying Israel is even possible. Barring that, my hope, the big hope, as is all of ours, is that I don't have worries about it, but that God will continue to protect us and provide his comfort for those of us who suffer more.
What also gives me hope is the spirit of the Jewish people. It's the spirit of knowing that now we must stand firm together and fight. First of all, to fight in order to defend the state of Israel. The young people I met in the Jewish Agency's youth villages and the new immigrants arriving here give me a lot of hope. You see that these young people are full of motivation. They want to go on, to build and to help, what we call mutual responsibility. That gives me a lot of strength. Every encounter with young people gives me strength. I recently visited Germany as the head of the Jewish Agency at summer camps. We brought 1,000 children from the Gaza envelope and the north who had been evacuated, and we took them to 50 Jewish communities around the world for summer camps. Some of the summer camps were in Germany. Jews from Germany together with Jewish youth from Israel aged 14 to 16 were together. They danced, they sang, they were joyful, they made plans together. It was truly heartwarming and gave me so much strength. So much hope. You see the wonderful energy that exists.
It always feels like we've been through worse. We can only keep going up from here. I try and hold on to all the good moments I had in Cholit before October 7th and to hold on the memories I have from my parents. And it's difficult, but you manage somehow. And I hope that we can actually just continue going forward and get all of our kidnapped people back because they need to come back home. I think one of the things that will help Israel move forward and keep on going and being the country that I love and know is bringing them back home and having multiple families whole again.
First of all, it's a lot of support. I think that we were very lucky that, if we can call this lucky, that we were surrounded by a very strong community that basically is a huge support group for every one of us. I think that's a privilege that we have a community that talks to each other, processes things together, sit together, talk together. Even people that, whether it be very close friends or people that you know hardly, you can just look each other in the eye and you know what they're going through and you don't have to say anything. And beyond that, I also say it's also so many good people that came across and helped us. It's volunteers from Israel that came in and helped us in even the most mundane things, like helping us move things from here to there, helping us even mend our garden in Kfar Aza, which we can't maintain now. So people volunteering there, very good people. And also be people from abroad. I had the privilege to meet good people from across the world, from Europe, United States, India, Germany, of course. And March of Life, I think, is a very significant part of this, of discovering the good people when you need them. So that is hopeful.
We need the hostages to come back to heal, because I can't even imagine my grandchildren living their lives knowing what their grandfather is going through and that nobody brought him back. I'm so happy for you that you are able to be the next generation and to fix it. And I just hope that Israel will go through this and will be able to fix it.
Yes, people like you in Germany. I heard the mayor of Berlin talking. I said, what a man. It was so good to hear him.
Yes.
People like you, we need people like you that knew history and not those ignorant who are shouting from the river to the sea. what river, what sea.
That's right.
Did you even open a map to see Israel among the enemies? We are like a drop of water in a sea of hatred.
Yes.
And remember one thing, people like you understand that we are the barrier and we are the wall. We are defending you because you are going to be next.
Yes, that's right.
You are going to be next because this is not a war of territory. It's a religion war.
Yes.
It's Islam, not all Islam. Not all Islam. I'm not blaming all Islam, but it is Islam against Judaism, against Christians. You know what we say in Israel? Not every Muslim man is a terrorist, but miraculously, all the terrorists are Muslim. And if you can think and you have a logic, you can understand what I said.
Yes.
What can I say? Only, dear people, please teach everyone around you the history. Show them the map. Tell them the truth. Because we have evidence. You saw all the evidence. And stand with us, not against us. Because we don't need a territory of Lebanon or Egypt or Jordan. We want to live in peace.
Yes.
And we did everything to live in peace. So this is what I am asking from you. Stand with us. Explain your neighbors, your friends, in your city, in your country, overseas. Tell them to open the eyes and to see the light and the truth. The truth is the light. We cannot live deep in lies. Thank you very much for everything you are doing for the state of Israel. Thank you. Thank you very much.
A better society is one that every day performs acts of kindness, that embraces the weak in the community and gives them a place of honor. This applies to the elderly, the widow, the orphan, the wounded, and the disabled. That is more just and righteous society. March of Life comes with a message like this, a wonderful message. And I hope that you succeed in amplifying this message throughout the world, especially in Western countries that advocate for human rights, but also in every other society. Maybe one day, as the prophets envisioned, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. Maybe we're not there yet, but this effort, this campaign for a society without racism is incredibly important. Thank you so much for your work, your dedication, and the love you have for the Jewish people and the State of Israel, and for the message you're spreading to the world. Thank you very much.
Es ist so beeindruckend, diese Stimmen aus Israel zu hören.
It's so moving to hear these voices from Israel and also to hear these voices of hope. And at the end of our night, we will give the opportunity to practically support Israel. But now we'd like to speak with our directors, and we've also fixed our technical problems. And now I'm so happy to see Rosalie Jerome. Rosalie Jerome is the director of March of Remembrance. It's the American branch of March of Life in Texas. And Rosalie, the question to you is, what has changed in America since the 7th of October, and what gives you hope?
Hello, I'm not hearing the English translation, but I know you want me to say what's happening in America. I'm living in Texas, and I do want you to know that we had an amazing event last night with the vigil. But I do want to tell you that there are two things happening in America since October 7th. It's really a polarizing thing. those who were really in the gray and didn't really care so much and see relevance of anti-Semitism or relevance of Holocaust or this issue, all of a sudden see the amazing relevance. And those who were for Israel and were concerned and had a heart for this issue with anti-Semitism or Holocaust, they are more so than ever before. Those who were and those who are in the middle, it's kind of a deal. A lot of them are going towards the negative, some on the positive. So I do want to say that I did a little research with the Anti-Defamation League reports that since October 7th here in America, over 5,700 incidents, anti-Semitic incidents in our country, a 200% increase in anti-Semitism. And it's very shocking for me because my parents were Holocaust survivors. Most of my family were murdered in the Holocaust. And to think that in this country that my family came to in America to be safe and free, to think that I don't feel that safe here is shocking. To think of sending my children to my grandchildren to colleges where there's such an amazing increase. In fact, it says there are 1,200 anti-Semitic incidents in America in the colleges. 1,200 killed at this October 7th event, 1,200 incidents since October 7th. In fact, the other day when I sent an e-blast out to all of the people on my email list that have come to marches of remembrance or have done events with us fighting anti-Semitism and raising up standards against anti-Semitism and hatred of Jewish people, what's happened is I actually got an email from one of the people saying, threatening me, saying, I'm going to kill you. I happened to go to an Anti-Defamation League meeting the other day for how to fight anti-Semitism in for educators, kindergarten to 12th grade. Just the thought that that there's even a course on that, or that our country has to teach this, is very disconcerting, because this is pre-World War II, pre-Holocaust behavior. And so when I told them that I had this email that came to me that I want to kill you, they were upset that I didn't report the incident. They consider that an incident if you're threatened. If somebody just says, oh, I don't like Jews or whatever, is one thing. But if they specifically, in America, at least with the Anti-Defamation League, if you are threatened in any way, that's considered an incident, needs to be reported. And also what I learned recently is that there are certain Middle Eastern countries that do not let you promote or speak kindly of Hamas. Yet in America, my country where I live, I have major universities, Columbia University, major universities that are Columbia, I'm sorry, I forgot the other ones that I had written down here, but that are freely allowed to be pro-Hamas under the guise of freedom of speech. So, yeah, so I'm a little upset. You asked about hope earlier. The hope is that we have Nazi descendants, my friends, Pastor Jobst, Heinz, all of you in Germany, that are leading the way of making a stand publicly, not privately, not behind closed, safe doors, but being public and not being afraid. And I appreciate that.
Vielen Dank, Rosalie, für diese.
Thank you so much, Rosalie, for your report from America, and also how you're doing as also personally as a survivor or a child of Holocaust survivors. And in a nation that says we don't have that problem, it has become so clear that this is a problem. And that's exactly what you also do with your own work there. You are an inspiration for thousands of people who do this and lift their voices, and we lift our voices together. I'd like to say thank you to you, Rosalie. And now we would like to talk with Nastia Nastia Antipova. She is a Ukrainian, but she lives in Germany, and she is the coordinator of our work in Ukraine. And Ukraine is in a very difficult situation themselves with the war that they have. But Ukraine has been very touched by what is going on in Israel. So, Nastia, can you tell us what has changed in Ukraine since October 7th? And also, what happened with the vigil in Ukraine today?
Vielen Dank, dass ich heute auch davon erzählen kann.
Thank you that I can also share about what happened today. I'd also like to say hello to our director. I could talk with him and interview him today. And since October 7th, something changed in Ukraine. There were many different interviews also about October 7th, where Ukraine said that they made a mistake in their relationship to Israel. And there were different articles where the Consulate of Israel also mentioned some things that in the relationship between Israel and Ukraine, that many things have actually changed since the October 7th attack. And Ukraine apologized for their distance. And since the 7th of October, Ukraine could take a new step, and also in the level of government, they could choose to live in solidarity with Israel and to apologize and say that this suffering can bring us closer together, and to build a foundation to say that we should stand together. And interestingly, in the government, there was a law that was made that all pro-Palestina or anti-Semitism or anti-Semitic attacks, that they are acts of crime, and they are seriously judged in Ukraine. And then there were also no pro-Palestina demonstrations. The government did not allow this, and it was not possible to do this because they made sure that this did not happen. And so you can see that the relationship between Israel and Ukraine has become closer. And on the other side, some people have tried to express a solidarity to Israel, remembering October 7th. And this morning in Kiev, in Ukraine, people met together at 6 in the morning after they were allowed to leave their homes, and they experienced a rocket alarm. And unfortunately, they were not able to go to the vigil themselves, but instead of that, they decided to go to the street and to do this in the afternoon because it was important to many people to stand in solidarity to Israel anyways. And they sent me the pictures this afternoon.
Von Kiew auch persönlich.
And there are many people in Kiev
zu 7. Oktober Plakate in Kiew aufgehängt
who personally hung up their own posters from the 7th of October to remember officially what happened on that day. And we're seeing in the political level that there is support for Israel and anti-Semitism.
Von häuslichem Antisemitismus,
at the level of anti-Semitism in homes. Unfortunately, it hasn't decreased and it hasn't disappeared. So this is still something that's just a problem, and it's still an important topic. And it's something that we should not forget on the 7th of October, that we should talk about this as well. Thank you so much, Nastia, for sharing this report with us. It's very impressive what is happening in Ukraine, and at the same time, in Ukraine, which herself is really in a battle.
It's so wertvoll,
and it's so It's so good that we are connected to so many different people and friends in Ukraine. And now we'd like to look to South America, to Ruben Gukner. She is the leader of March of Life in South America. And it's not just one nation there, but it's many different cultures and nations. And at the same time, the 7th of October changed South America. And that is the question, Ruben, what has changed? And what gives you hope in this situation?
Gracias por la posibilidad de compartir con ustedes. Y yo creo que el 7 de octubre ha hecho algo muy importante en Latinoamérica, porque ha mostrado lo que realmente hay.
On the 7th of October, something very important happened in South America because it showed us what really exists. Until October 7th, nobody had problems with Israel. And nobody was interested in that. But since October 7th, a lot of things have happened. The government of Colombia, they had to close the embassy of Israel because there was no diplomatic relationship that they wanted to have to Israel anymore, like in Venezuela or Nicaragua. But for instance, in Argentina or in Paraguay, they decided to stand to ask Israel for advice, and I believe there are nations in the middle. Since the 7th of October, there's one change. There's a change in how they think about Israel. So the sheep are being separated from the goats. And it gives us hope that what we see, that in Paraguay, for instance, things are changing. And this morning, there was a vigil with people from the Jewish community in Argentina, in Bolivia, in Peru, in Colombia. There was a march last Saturday in Barranquilla on the coast where the people took to the streets. Even though it rained. I've never seen anything like this before. And they weren't just small groups, but they were also big groups. And today in Lima, they woke up and there were thousands of bridges with signs that said that they stand with Israel.
Al lado de Israel y decir no olvidar. Y nuestros
amigos, in almost all of the nations in South America, there were at least 2 or 3 people who took to the streets to say that we stand for Israel and that we stand on the side of Israel. And what our Jewish friends told us, they are so thankful that we have not left them. Because politics say that many people have left us, but the Christians and the church stand close to us, and we saw that there really is change in the different nations. Thank you, Ruben. So in South America, there was a lot of change. Many people are taking to the streets and standing on the side of Israel, but it's still not enough. There's still so much that has to happen. And I believe that's why it's so important that we are here together and that we set a sign together. And that's exactly what we're doing with this event. But I believe one of the things that are important is that we express our support with our voices for Israel, but it is also in practical things that we do, and we can do that with our donations. So why is this important, Jobst? In this time, it's more important than ever before. When we were in Israel, we also heard Israel is a traumatized nation. It's a nation who's standing her ground, but at the same time, this is a situation in which we can very practically use our finances to help to decrease the suffering. And that's why it's important that we should open our wallets very wide and to give the best that we have. And I believe nothing is more moving than when we don't just say things, but that we let our words become practical. And how can we do that in the best way than if we donate? Yeah, and we were having a donation action for the kibbutz Kfar Aza. We heard about the story, what happened from Doron Almog and Aviva Siegel, who was kidnapped with her husband there, and also Hanan, who survived in his bunker there. And Kfar Aza is a special place. And the dream of the people there is that they want to build up Kfar Aza again. And the one part is building up the city in a practical way, and the state of Israel is doing that already. But they want to build up their community together again. And there are many different projects, and we've already supported them, and we would like to support them and continue to support them today with our donation. So please put the slide on the screen. We have a website which you can go on. It's marchoflife.com/Kfar Aza. So you can do a bank transfer or share or donate using your credit card. And today, 51% of what you donate will go to Kfar Aza, and 49% will go to cover the cost of our event, Never Forget October 7th, and to release these projects. And with your donation, you can support both. You can support both of us, both Kfar Aza, that it will be built up again, that we have the people there, but also that we can support the work that we're doing with Never Forget October 7th. And so we're going to keep the QR code on the screen, and now we're going to see a dance, Hashivenu, and in this time, we'd like to give you time to express your support for Israel in a practical way with this donation.
Hashivenu, turn us back. Vielen Dank.
Hashivenu, turn us back. Thank you so much for your support, for the donation to Kfar Aza, but also for our event Never Forget October 7th. But the March of Life will continue. The work of the March of Life is continuing, and one of the foundations of our work is the message of breaking the veil of silence. And she plays such a big meaning so that we effectively can fight against anti-Semitism, Jobst. Yeah, that's the truth. Anti-Semitism is a poison. It's very old, more than 2,000 years, and I believe that we have to do something with this poison. We encounter it through teachings and in many different ways, through many different means. We've tried to do something against anti-Semitism, teaching, for instance, but in this year we saw how anti-Semitism exploded. And the answer to this is that we have to start with ourselves. Anti-Semitism is transmitted and inherited from generation to generation in the ways that we think and the things that we do, in ways that we act, and we just can't get rid of it. But breaking the veil of silence, the seminar, that's what it's all about. How can I work with this? How can I work through this? And there's a transgenerational handing down of this. And there are scientists who say this isn't just a problem of families, but it's also a problem in societies, this handing down from generation to generation. And we can do something concrete against this. And for many years, we've experienced that when we look at our own family stories and our history, that we recognize something, that we have to do something with the anti-Semitism within ourselves. And there are very clear ways to help. There are principles, and that's what we teach about, and that's what we invite you to in a Breaking the Veil of Silence seminar, of how you can put a stop of this in your life. And that's why you should be there with us. And we have these Veil of Silence seminars, the Breaking the Veil seminars, locally where you are, but also online. And we're going to have a seminar very soon for Germany, and it will be from the 15th to the 16th of November, and also from the 29th to the 30th of November. But we also have a Breaking the Veil of Silence seminar for all for all nations, and it will be next year from the 6th to the 7th of March and from the 28th to the 29th. And all the information you can find at www.theveilofsilence.com. You can go to the website, you can find all of our information. So these seminars happen per Zoom. There are counseling sessions, and these topics will be dealt with also in prayer. So I'd like to invite you to remember this and to register. And I want to tell you again, it's not just about theory. These teachings are important, and it's an option to receive personal prayer, to personally work through these things, and that is something very important. Yeah, and that is the Breaking the Veil of Silence seminar. And the other thing is, we are calling you not just to raise your voice once, but to do this time and again. And there's not a more special time in March of Life than the time around Yom HaShoah, the International Remembrance Day of the Holocaust. And it will be on the 25th of April next year. And so you should have a March of Life in your city where you are. So plan this day already. And we will also be having a preparation of before these marches, and it will be our International March of Life conference in Tübingen. And hey, that is the biggest highlight. You cannot miss out. So all people from all the nations come. We have encounters, we do networking, we talk about our experiences, and it's important to do this because we can experience resistance, have difficulties, and we try to find solutions, and we talk about these things. And we also have amazing guests, people from Israel, Holocaust survivors. I can only recommend that you should be there, and everybody should be there who wants to be with us together and who wants to lift their voices together with Israel. So it will be in February from the 14th to the 16th next year, and we will be opening our registration soon, so please put this in your calendar and color it red. You can also find more information about this event at our website. And Jobst, once a year, March of Life goes to Israel. And what happens there? Yeah, so we have our March of the Nations, and we're going to have a conference in Jerusalem. And then it will be very special because we will be going into the different cities in Israel, and we will be having marches of the nations. We will have colorful meetings with Holocaust survivors, but also representatives of public life there. So March of the Nations will be a highlight. So also put this in your calendar and be there with us. It will be from May 11th to 14th, 2025. We're also going to have a symposium against anti-Semitism in the Knesset. We're going to march through many cities and meet with many people. So don't forget this event. Put it in your calendar and color it red. But we made it to the end of our commemoration today, and I think, Jobst, we should thank a few people. You should start because you know who it is. So the first one we'd like to thank is the March of Life team, who has worked very hard to bring this event on its feet. Michael Bucke, Ari Bittner, Anna-Suzette Pfeiffer, and also our media team with Matthias Rowley, who is in the background of our documentaries, which we showed, Johannes Bestek. He worked the whole day working on the transitions. Felix Kunze and many, many more who were active here to make this possible and also to share this internationally. And one of the people you didn't mention was you yourself, Heinz. You've worked so hard on this so that it could be possible. And I also like to say thank you to all of you because we are together. I'd like to say to all of them, thank you to all of the March of Life directors and to everybody who is moving in any way. And we in Swabia say we want to move together, and we have to move together in this time, and we want to move something. And that's why we're together in doing this. So we want to continue to be on this path together, and we're going to hear a song to conclude the night called Guf Venshema. And the writer of the song says himself, since October 7th, millions of Jews around the world are experiencing a feeling of loss, and we see the borderless fear in their eyes, but in the middle of this, there's one constant thing.
In jeder Situation, zu jeder Zeit und besonders in den letzten Monaten. Es ist der Akt, die Augen zu bedecken.
There's an anger for all of the Jews to speak out the Shema Israel, as if we would say, like a lost child, I have come back to you. And we want to express our friendship with the song to the Jewish people, to Israel. And we want to say we stand with you in these difficult times, but also in good times. Thank you so much.
תמיד בסוף היום יש איזה רגע קטן, הלב שלי שוקע כשהאור נעלם, קשה לי לראות בדרך אליך. רציתי לדבר איתך על מה שבלב, על רגע מיושר, לא רק על מה שכואב. עשה לי טובה, אל תסתר את פניך. תמיד אתה יודע מתי, אם התרחקתי מדי, כמו ילד הולך לאיבוד, צעקתי אליך. שמע ישראל, השם אלוקינו, השם אחד. שמע ישראל, השם אלוקינו, השם אחד. מה זה גופי נשמה? בשביל מה? רוצה להיות קרוב אליך שנה ועוד שנה. בשביל מה? ומי אני כאן בלעדיך? קורה שלפעמים גם העצב נצמח, היד על העיניים ואני לא לבד. כתבתי שירים עליי ועליך, רציתי לספר לך על יום שעבר, תמיד אתה איתי גם במתוק גם במר, רציתי להיות הטוב בעיניך. תמיד אתה יודע מתי, אם התרחקתי מדי, כמו ילד הולך לאיבוד, צעקתי אליך. שמע ישראל, השם אלוקינו השם אחד. שמע ישראל, השם אלוקינו השם אחד. מה זה גוף ונשמה, בשביל מה? רוצה להיות קרוב אליך, שנה ועוד שנה, בשביל מה? ומי אני כאן בלעדיך? השם אלוקינו השם אחד. שמע ישראל, השם אלוקינו השם אחד. מה זה גוף ונשמה, בשביל מה? רוצה להיות קרוב אליך, שנה ועוד שנה, בשביל מה? ומי אני כאן בלעדיך? שמע ישראל.
אתה זוכר מה זה עולם ופוקד כל יצור